(6 o'clock), we'll call the meeting to order. Pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening and welcome to the Monday, June 3rd, 2024 City Council meeting at Credit River. We will begin with approving or amending the agenda. Is there any agendas, topics that anybody would like to change, or I'd take a motion to approve?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Leroy.
Second.
Thank you, Abe. So I've got a motion and a second to approve the agenda as written. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Consent agenda. Those items on the consent agenda which are considered routine or non-controversial are included as part of the consent agenda. Unless a council member specifically requests that an item on the consent agenda be removed and considered separately, items on the consent agenda are considered under one motion, a second, and a vote. Any item removed from the consent agenda shall be placed at the end of general business. Tonight on the consent agenda, we've got the May 20th, 2024 City Council meeting minutes, the May 2024 claims approval, and resolution 2024-22 governing the counting of write-in votes. Is there anything on the consent agenda that any council member would like to remove and consider separately? Hearing none, I take a motion to approve consent agenda.
Make the motion.
Abe?
Second.
Jay? So I've got a motion and a second to approve consent agenda as written. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Open forum. The public forum is intended to afford the public an opportunity to address concerns to the council. The public forum be no longer than 30 minutes in length, and each presenter will have no more than 5 minutes to speak. Topics of discussion are restricted to local governmental topics rather than private or political agendas. The council may discuss but will not take formal action in any public forum presentations. Tonight for open forum, we will begin with Mr. Haberlack. Mike, you're up. Please do. There you go.
Mayor, council members, my name is Mike Haberlack, 7905 165th Street in the Credit River. In 2021, Credit River became a city. And looking at a lot of the ordinances on the city's website, it refers to Credit River still as a township. I think that probably needs to be updated. And also, you know, with these higher density developments being considered, maybe we should just look at the ordinances and make sure that we're on kind of par with some of these things that are being considered in our city. I understand that we're a member of the, what is it, the League of Minnesota Cities. And from my understanding is they have like quite an extensive library that has model ordinances to kind of go off of. And I'm just wondering if we should update some of these ordinances, go from township to Credit River, the city of Credit River, and also maybe look at some of these ordinances that maybe pertain to developments coming in, the higher, not high, because I kind of learned my lesson, there's high and higher developments coming in, just to make sure that our ordinances kind of are on par with maybe what we are as a city. So I guess my request is to maybe council and mayor direct the attorney to maybe look into getting these changes made and maybe looking into some of the ordinances that may affect developments coming in the future. So thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
Yeah.
Vern. You take a spot in the back and you're the second one signed up.
Vern Platt, 165th Street. I got two things on the city calendar for the parks meetings. There's two different dates. It's not dates, times. It's a 6:30 and 7:30. You know, you got the little calendar And it says, I don't know what it says there, 6:30, and you click on it, then it says 7:30 or vice versa. So anyway, what time is it?
Sounds like it's gonna last an hour, Vern.
Probably what it is, Vern. We'll take a look at that, but. it probably
They
starts
start at 6:30?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
One more thing. Pretty much a yes and no question. We don't need no long explanation. Everybody's telling you where the government center should be over on 185th. Have all three of the current owners been approached and talked to in person, not the previous owner?
One's changed hands.
Yeah. So yes or no?
Yes,
That's all I need to know.
Okay.
Thank you.
probably 4 years ago, we approached them. We've been in
Yep,
contact with them
yep.
since.
Okay, but not lately, I guess?
I haven't been.
About a month or so ago,
Talked
yeah.
to the committee.
Mhm.
Okay, and this is the three current owners then you have been in contact with.
With the realtor that represents them, yes.
Okay, that's very good. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, Vern. Corey Tate.
Me again. Okay, quick question. Population of Credit River, 5,500? Roughly? Okay, so I'm here talking about the tradition development again, and I'm not gonna go into big spiel about it because, you know, you guys all know how I feel. All right, I just want to be sure that when it comes up for presented for a vote, that people are aware of that ahead of time. So that we know when you're gonna be voting on this. If it does get presented, number one. Number two, if we have 5,500 people in this city right now, if you go ahead and improve this, you're looking at increasing the population by 10% on 87 acres. By just adding that, because you're gonna have 218 homes, probably 2 adults per home, and you get a couple kids in there, you're already up to 500 people. So is that the kind of density you really want to put there? In that bad spot for traffic? Okay, that's my only comment here. And that's it.
Okay, thank you, Corey. Mr. DeGroot?
Yeah.
Sure. Okay, Mr. Bryant. Take you instead.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, my name is Tom Bryant and I live at 7697 Crestview Drive here in Credit River. I'm here tonight to follow up on the comments that I made at the May 6th and May 20th city council meetings regarding the proposed government center project. One of the key points I made during those council meetings and keep coming back to is the need to prioritize giving information about the government center project to residents and encouraging resident feedback. This included the request that the city council consider creating a citizens advisory committee that could be tasked with a number of things, including reviewing the needs analysis for office space and or public works, offering feedback to the council on the proposed government center project, assisting in calculating how much this will cost Credit River residents in the terms of higher property taxes, and then making sure the community is regularly updated on each of these matters. Now, in the city staff reports in your packet on pages 54 through 57 of tonight's council meeting, emphasis is now being focused on resident feedback with the possibility of a community workshop to be scheduled, and then the creation of a citizens advisory committee. These moves are all in the right direction, and we continue to believe that the city council should discuss and agree to create a citizens advisory committee before further consideration of the government center project or holding a community workshop. Why? Because the advisory committee itself should participate in any future community workshops and other meetings where resident input is invited, so that members of that advisory committee can hear directly from other residents. For it is through listening to residents that a citizens advisory committee can make the best recommendations to the city council on whether to proceed with a new government center, and if so, the size and scope of the project. So on behalf of a growing number of Credit River residents, we urge the city council to prioritize the creation of that citizens advisory committee. Thank you for your time and consideration of the request.
Thank you, Mr. Bryant. Mr. DeGroot, do you want to?
Steve DeGroot, 19061 Margaret Lane. First of all, thanks to all of you for the work that you do on behalf of the city of Credit River. I'm disappointed with the level of transparency, however. Even after a standing agenda item was requested last week or 2 weeks ago to provide an update on where we're at, we only ended up with a going forward item. What I would like to see is a standing agenda item where items that have happened communicated to everyone. Upcoming actions are highlighted and any major changes in the overall direction can be communicated. Current communication deficiencies include providing the needs study results, including who is involved in the process, financial obligations made in the studies, soil, borings, etc., number of sites considered, sites still in consideration. My best source of what's happening in the city of Credit River should not be the Rural Alliance website to explain the number of sites being considered, or the LexisNexis site to explain the reason that 3 Scott County Sheriff's deputies are sitting below my house on County Road 68 because the city's contractor is trespassing on one of my neighbor's property. It's up to the council to be transparent. They have stated they want to be, but transparency has been lacking so far. I'm concerned about the process of developing the needs that led you to conclusions you have made so far. It feels like we're letting the kids write the Christmas list and giving them a credit card to buy what they want. I believe there should be an in-depth review and an opportunity to debate these assumptions. Feels like the vision has been lost. During the election cycle, many of you were on my street telling me why becoming a city was good and how that you guys were going to take and make sure that things didn't change. This is our best option of how to do that. Now, over the last year, it seems like everything has changed. And I think that's the wrong way to look at it. Go back and look at the newspaper articles where you guys gave an interview and told what you stood for. I think there's truth in there. I would suggest, go back to those answers. That the vision should be preserve what we have. Everybody that lives here likes what we have. Work to preserve it. I'm urging you all again to abandon consideration of the sites north side of County Road 68. The damage that you would do to surrounding properties and potential developments would be devastating. If we need a new site, let's put it in the right spot, not in the middle of areas that were designated as future rural residential development. Finally, I'm voicing my support for the Citizens Committee. Having some additional perspectives and opinions would be beneficial to the process and could help flesh out more potential resolutions to the issues that we are all facing. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve. Looks like next we got, is it Bruce Wise?
Bruce Wise, 7601, 169th Street. First of all, just a comment about the last person with regards to keeping it rural. And things seem to be changing and such. If there's, and I tried to look back and I've played catch up on city council meetings that I've missed online. But if there's something that is being forced on us from the Met Council, or requirements for the how we have to progress with density, and that's why the developments are being presented as such. I think that would be great to just reiterate to the citizens so that we all are on the same page. But really what I want to talk tonight about was mainly about, the first thing would be the vision for the parks, the statement for the mission statement for the city, and hiring outside consultants. I spent many years in companies where we hired outside consultants to just really gather information from employees that had the information and put it in a pretty PowerPoint and present it to people. And I always saw that as quite the waste of money. So I'd like you guys to think about that. Really check yourself if you want to hire consultants. Another point is, in the past 5 years, our taxes have gone up about 182% for the city of Credit River. That seems excessive. Home value is probably about 80% increase. And for me, where I live, there's been no increase in services. So I'm a little fearful what the future is gonna hold for taxation on my property. And then one more is we always, you drive around these smaller cities like Savage, Shakopee, Prior Lake, they have beautiful monuments that they've built along the road saying, welcome to Prior Lake. Let's not ever have that in Credit River. That would be a waste of tax dollars. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Bruce. Mr. Brunello.
Good evening, Dave Brunello, 20860 Lynn Drive. And I do not have a planned statement, but I'm probably going to repeat some of the things that the previous gentlemen have said, but I moved my family here 33 years ago. It was a small community. It was safe. It was well planned, and it was affordable. I don't think I can say that anymore. And with the growth from the development from the north and the impingement or the infringement of Lakeville coming from the east on our border, I think there's going to be some safety concerns. We sit here in this building, I would say it's probably not full, pretty close, but we're talking about building a $20 million structure in the next year or two. And I'm not sure or convinced that we really need that all at one time. Can we have a more methodical, planned approach where we do it incrementally? And I question why all this planning in the last year or two has these aspirations of us becoming this big city, government centers, and who's driving that? I know somebody mentioned the council, the Met Council. We have a new city administrator. Is there aspirations of improving someone's resume so that they can move on to another city in another year or two? Or is this person dedicated for planned growth in our city that is safe and affordable? Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Commissioner Wolf.
Hello, Mr. Chair, council members, Tom Wolf, County Commissioner. Just a couple things, you know, there's a lot of road construction going on now. Drive careful in the work zones. You know, our bids are coming in at good rates at this point, so we're really happy about that. My second thing is I have a little survey. If anyone has time, I'm going to pass these down to each row. It's about solid waste. I know everyone loves solid waste and recycling and all that stuff, but if we could just reduce some of the whatever we're putting into the dumps, nobody wants a dump. Who wants a dump by the house? Nobody. So anyhow, we're trying to figure out how we can get rid of yeah, that's their purpose. Okay, you just all you have to do is scan the code, you're good, but if we can reduce 30-40%, boy, we wouldn't need many more dumps. So anyhow, that's all I have. Thank you.
Cool. Thanks, Tom.
Oh, that was a short one.
Tina.
Yes, thank you, Councilman. Tina Mishka, 16331 Creekwood Drive. I just wanted to talk about committees and just to remind you that back in fall of 2022, the Credit River Rural Alliance did start, and we did advise for a committee back then. And so what I would be a proponent of is to be a part of a city or a citizen committee for a vision statement. I also would support a committee for the government center. And if you guys are looking for people to serve on those committees, I know of a lot of people, so feel free to ask. Also too, I know that Kathy Reynolds will be talking about government center next steps. And in the agenda, she did indicate that there were two options about getting citizens involved. I would suggest that the second option would be one where I would recommend bringing the information directly to us so that we can speak to you all. And I believe that is it. Oh, I could speak the remaining of my 5 minutes for the vision statement, but I will let you guys not hear my voice again. But if you do want to see the vision statement again, we have 2 here. So just let me know and I can get that to you after the meeting. All right, thank you.
All right. Thank you, Tina. With that, we'll close open forum and move on. Presentations, Administrator Reynolds, I know it's not on the agenda, but do you want to introduce our intern tonight?
Thank you, Mayor, Council. I had sent you information earlier that we had an intern that would be joining us for these sometime this summer. So I'd like to introduce Miles Robb, who's sitting back here in the back. You can stand up and say hi to everybody. Miles is working on his bachelor's in public administration at the University of Northern Iowa and is doing an internship with us for the summer. And for purposes of, yes, if you remember, it's not in our budget. He is here on an unpaid internship, helping us out with some items, looking at financing and kind of some government center public works type information and helping puts those items together. So welcome to Miles. He's been with us for almost about a week now. So
good. Welcome, Miles. All right, thank you. Next up, public hearings. Tonight we've got a assessment hearing for the 2024 overlay project. And with that, I will pass it off to Engineer Nelson with the presentation on that.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think I'll stand up so everybody in the audience can see me. So my name is Shane Nelson. I'm the city engineer, and I'll just go quickly over our 2024 overlay project. Again, this is the assessment hearing. So we've already had the public improvement hearing that was last fall. And that's where we talked about, you know, what kind of improvements are we considering for our roads? Are these the right improvements? Are there anything else that we should consider? So we took that input, went prepared plans and specifications. Now we are here tonight at what's called the assessment hearing. And this is really where you consider the amount of the assessment. So our project location consists of several project areas, including West Side Drive, Pebblebrook Court. The roads within the territory development, Palomino Drive. And then again, the roads on the south side of territory. So those are the roads, everything that's shown in blue is proposed to be improved by a bituminous overlay. So just by way of background, we own and maintain about 65 miles of road. With this project being 4.8 miles, so it's only a fraction of our overall road length, and we do not levy enough money to fully fund our capital improvement programs. So therefore, we have this method in which a portion of the project costs are assessed to the benefiting properties. And then this project is scheduled for 2024. So overall, the pavement is in fairly good condition for its age. That's the ideal time to construct an overlay. We don't want to wait until it's severely deteriorated, because then we won't get as much life out of that. And so really, the intent is to construct an overlay now while we still have enough structure left in the pavement, and try to get these roads to last another 10 or 15 years, so we can try to achieve our lowest life cycle cost for the pavement. So proposed improvements consist of edge milling of the pavement and or milling at the end of driveways as necessary. And then again, we're going to construct a bituminous overlay to add structural strength. It's going to improve the ride quality, extend our service life, and provide us with the lowest life cycle cost. So these are just a couple of typical sections from the plan set. We actually have quite a few for this project because there's so many roads, some kind of varying things going on. But mainly what I wanted to point to here is the most you're going to see like a difference in elevation is 1.5 inches. So at the center line, for the most part, the roads are going to be 1.5 inches higher than they are now after this overlay completed. This would be like the typical section used for the West Side Drive and the Pebblebrook Court, where we have an aggregate shoulder and 11 to 12 foot driveways. And this typical section here, very similar, but these are the roads in the territory developments. The roads in the territory don't actually vary in width, some are 22 feet wide, some are 26 feet wide. With the narrower roads being, the cul-de-sacs. And there we have a lot of really nice concrete driveways. Other features that we cannot impact. And so for the most part in the territory development, what we're gonna do is do some edge milling. And then construct that, again, that 1.5 inch bituminous overlay on all the local roads. This typical section up here would be, Palomino Court. And there we have curb and gutter, so again, that's pretty similar to the last one I described, where we're edge milling, the pavement and constructing the bituminous overlay, again, 1.5 inches, and the only difference, or the only variable is on Dakota Avenue in the territory, which is designated as a collector road. That will actually receive a 2-inch overlay, so it's a slightly thicker pavement section, and that's due to the fact that the road will receive more traffic. So now for the good news, our engineer's estimate for this project was just a little over $1 million, $1,027,500. That was based on estimates from projects last year and then adjusted for inflation. We opened bid on May 14th of this year. McNamara Contracting was a little better. We've done several projects with McNamara in the past, and they are a very good contractor. And based on those bids, our updated estimate for the project is $810,000. So about a 20% savings, or about 20% under our estimates. And part of that is, for the past 3 or 4 years, we've been seeing 10 or 15% increases in construction costs year after year. So we built that into our estimates last fall. And what actually happened is petroleum products really have kind of stayed flat or maybe even decreased some. So that 10 or 15% that we thought prices would escalate, we've actually saw a slight decrease. So good news, about a 20% cost savings. As I mentioned earlier, all the projects or all the properties that benefit from these improvements are proposed to be assessed. And those are all shown on these maps with like the white circle with the blue number inside. Go ahead and advance the slides. So there's we utilize a per unit assessment method, and there are actually 193 benefiting properties with this project. So quite a few direct benefiting properties. And the direct access assessment, the amount that you've all received notice on, is $2,430 per unit. And then we also are proposing to assess the property on the north side of the territory, known as the Yellowstone and Credit River property. And that amount, based on our original estimates, was $27,945. And that's based on 46 units that would utilize those roads with indirect access, or a quarter unit for each. So the assessments, you can either pay them off in full prior to the deadline, which will be later this fall, November 15th, November 30th, somewhere around there. Or if you don't, they just go on your taxes, they amortize over time period, which is 10 years. And then one other important thing is, again, so you receive notice based on this $2,430 per unit. And in the past, kind of the process that the city council has utilized is we send out the estimates based on our feasibility estimates, or based on our project estimates. Then after the project's all done, then they consider the actual project cost, and that's when they consider a O&M. So we don't want to keep on giving you different numbers based on the most current estimate. We try to start out with one number. We try to make it a good estimate, and then at the end of the project, if we save money or if the city has saved money, they typically consider a lower in that assessment. So just a quick refresher or background on where we're at on schedule. So these are all the steps that we've taken so far to get to where we're at tonight. Here tonight, we're June of 2024, where we're conducting the assessment hearing. This will be your opportunity to step up to the podium and speak to the council on the amount of your assessment. And then after the assessment hearing closes, one of the next items on our agenda is to consider awarding the bids. And then as far as construction timeframe, so we generally leave a pretty wide window for the improvements to be completed. So in general, we're calling for the improvement to be constructed somewhere between June and the end of August. And then with the one exception being Dakota Avenue, which goes to the north, and that road, we're calling for that to be completed by October 11th. And that's to allow some other work to be completed so that we're not running trucks on our brand new. With that being said, that doesn't mean that once this project is awarded or moves forward, that it's going to be during construction for months at a time. What that means is we give the contractor a window. We want you to complete it sometime during this time frame. That's how we get our best bids. And they, after the contract is awarded, they generally provide us with a schedule, tell us what they're thinking for their time frame, and then we send that out, usually in a separate notice to all the affected residents, with a better time frame. Normally, these projects go pretty quick from the time we start to finish. It's maybe a couple of weeks, maybe 3 weeks, if there's some concrete work or something that needs to cure, because that generally takes 7 days for concrete to cure before you can work around it. And with that, that is my presentation. So I'll sit back down at this time. I'll turn it back over to the mayor, and just a reminder, if you do speak, please step up to the podium and name and address.
Perfect. Thank you, Shane. Appreciate the presentation. At this time, I will open the public hearing for the 2024 overlay project. If you wish to speak in regards, questions, comments regards to that 2024 overlay project, I do ask at this time that you'd step to the podium and state your name and address.
Egan, West Side Drive.
Sorry, what was your first name again?
Ash Egan. Sorry, I really hate public speaking.
Sorry.
You said West Side Drive was getting the 2-inch overlay. Is that doing anything with the drainage ditches, or are we getting to keep that?
West Side Drive is 1.5 inch overlay, and there's no work proposed on the drainage system.
Perfect. So it's just Palomino and some other locations. I wasn't sure what the maps. I just wanted you to.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ash. Anybody else would like to speak in regards to the 2024 overlay project? Going once. Going twice. At this time, I'll ask for a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Leroy.
Second.
Thank you, Jay. So I've got a motion and a second to close the public hearing for the 2024 overlay project. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. So then we'll move into general business. 6.1, resolution 2024-23, accepting bids and awarding contract for the 2024 overlay project. Engineer Nelson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As we just briefly discussed, we opened bids on May 14th for this project. McNamara Contracting was the low bidder with a total bid amount of $634,693. As a reminder, that's just a construction cost portion of it, doesn't include all the city's finance costs or overhead costs. And with that, we would recommend that the city approve resolution 2024-23, accepting bids and awarding the contract.
Thank you, Shane. Council members, any questions or discussion?
I just have a single question, with Yellowstone. I know that it was stated that we're slated for Dakota last. Do we have any idea still with Yellowstone where that falls in this place?
The only thing I can offer is my last conversation with Mr. Kowalski, in which he stated that he plans, or he would like to break ground as early as possible this year. I do know that they submitted a final plat application, and so that's something that we'll be working on. I think that just happened within the last day or two. And so we'll be reviewing that final plat application, and that will come in front of the city council for action probably relatively soon. At which point we'll have a better idea on time frame.
Do we have any flexibility if it does get delayed? And we start putting all that down and we got trucks coming in on it right afterwards? Is there concern of that?
There is a concern, and I've actually, debated, what the right thing to do is. And really what I think will be the best, one of the biggest concerns is truck traffic on tender pavement. So when you first pave a road, I mean, it stays tender for really until it cools off all the way. And so, we're calling for completion by October 11th, I think it was. And so that's really to allow that work to be done late in the year. So even if the Yellowstone project gets delayed a year, my thinking is that if it's delayed a year, okay, we don't know that it's actually gonna happen next year. And so if it does get delayed a year, let's try to schedule the work so that it can be completed later in the season, so the pavement can cool off fairly quickly. And that's kind of our best chance for reducing our risk.
With that contract, is it spelled out that that's, I mean, my biggest fear is they started doing that one first, right? And now we start in the summer months, we start having trucks right after we lay it. Is that written down? How do we make sure that it's? followed?
Yes, yeah, yeah, that's a great question. That is in the contract document. I don't recall the exact date, but it says something that the overlay on Dakota specifically cannot occur until, I believe it's September 1st. It must be completed by October 11th. So there's what, a 5-week time frame. And yeah, that's, we call for everything else to be completed by August 31st. Therefore, if they wanted to, they could kind of schedule it so they complete all the other side roads in the territory, have those completed by August 31st, and then right after that, go move right on to Dakota. So.
Okay, thank you.
And McNamara has been very, very good to work with. We've probably done
20, yeah,
well, maybe 20 projects with them.
over the years.
And if something does change, I think it's very likely that they'll be willing to change the timing of that. And if there is any cost difference, they'll be very reasonable with what that is.
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you.
Councilmember Sutherland.
Can we put a weight restriction on for a window when they do that for the territory work?
So
it's determined that it's cooled sufficiently, say if it's a week or if it's 4 days, 5 days or something like that, and then, just further protect it by just saying, once they lay it, post the road and say, hey, no, and notify the contractor and say.
Oh, I see. Yeah. Actually, I think that would be the best.
We don't want you to traffic on that until we determine that it's been cooled off. Something like that, and then you can make an inspection.
Yeah, and probably the best place to do that would be in the development agreement for the Yellowstone.
Okay.
Specify right in there as a condition.
Okay.
Yeah, that'd be another.
Is it's at whatever point that they do it, just say, hey, 5 days or whatever you determine is being sufficient.
Right.
No traffic from the larger trucks.
Right. Yep, I think that makes sense. And so far what we've seen of the Yellowstone plans, I mean, it appears that they're planning on doing some development that access off of Dakota, but yeah, they're also planning some larger lot that would access out of 210. So
It's all gonna be on Dakota.
correct.
Perfect. Any other comments, questions, council? Hearing none, I'd be open to a motion to accept resolution 2024-23, accepting the bids and awarding the contract for the 2024. Thank you, Jay.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Leroy. So I've got a motion by Councilmember Sutterback, second by Councilmember Schomer to approve the resolution 2024-23, accepting the bids and awarding the contract for the 2024 overlay project. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Next up, accepting the quotes for 195th Street culvert replacement and award the contract to McNamara Contracting. Shane, you on that one as well?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor, Mayor and Council. So this is a project we've actually been working on for a couple of years to replace, it's actually an old cattle pass that's under 195th Street. And if you've ever visited the site in person, you'll notice that within a foot of the pavement edge, there's a 7-foot drop off. So edge of pavement and then literally a 7-foot drop off to the bottom of that cattle pass. And so this is to kind of replace that or correct that safety deficiency. And one of the reasons that we haven't been able to move forward with this project previously is because we did not have the easements from all the property owners, but we did obtain the easement in the spring from the second property owner. Therefore, we went out and solicited quotes. And again, McNamara Contracting is the lowest quoter. So if I quote tab. We got quite a few quotes. McNamara Contracting, the lowest at $76,485.80. And then they ranged all the way up to $139,580. The second lowest quote was from Kruger Excavating, and was the amount of $80,260. And as a reminder, this project, this isn't a project that exceeds the threshold for bids, therefore it's advertised as a project utilizing the quotes. And so we do have the flexibility of awarding it to the contractor that we feel is best suited to do this work. Again, McNamara Contracting, I think will do a great job. They've done a really good work for us in the past. So with that, I would recommend the council accept the quotes and award the contract to McNamara Contracting.
Perfect. Thank you, Shane. Council members, any questions or comments? There are none. I would take a motion to approve the quote for McNamara Contracting at $76,485.80.
So moved.
Thank you, Jay.
I'll second.
Thank you, Abe. So a motion and a second to approve the quote from McNamara Contracting for $76,485.80 for the 195th Street culvert replacement. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Good to get that one moving because it is quite the safety risk there. All right, next up, 6.3 Government Center Next Steps, Administrator Reynolds.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. Put this on the agenda for council to have a discussion on process moving forward. We were working on putting together some stuff so we can go further into the space needs analysis that was conducted and the forecasts that are out there for space needs for staffing and for public works. Kind of looking at how do we want to move this forward. One of the options that was presented was to be able to bring it back to the next council meeting on June 17th. It would allow a presentation so the council could hear it and the community at whole would have the opportunity to hear it through the live stream or going back and watching the video of the meeting. And then we could take that to a work session or a workshop, a community workshop, and get their input on it. And then bring that input and the design work back into, or the space needs analysis back into the council for kind of council consideration and in looking at it and any changes or adjustments to that council would like to see. Second option kind of put in here was really just to take the information directly to the community workshop and obtain their input. And then bring the input and materials into the council for the council's consideration and looking at this. And like I said, this is really looking at that space needs analysis, which is then what is building out kind of that master plan with the phasing, with phase one, eventually being kind of more along the lines of what council would be considering for moving forward with. The phase two and phase three, as it's proposed currently with the 3 phases, is really that master planning that gives us the ability to say any place that we're looking at is adequate for what we need today and into the future, as well as if any design that we're looking at is built for today, but also provides the opportunity to be expanded in the future if and when the need occurs for that to occur. So just wanting council to look at that, have a discussion and kind of give some feedback on how they would like it to move forward so we can work with the contractors and get all this put together in whatever package format we're looking at, whether it's for council first or for the community first. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Administrator Reynolds. So at this time then, council members, looking for discussion on this and talking about that, I think, you know, personally, I'd like to see us have an open house with, you know, an opportunity to tell the story and walk through the needs analysis. I'd like to hear from the building committee on, you know, what their thoughts are on, you know, these options and whatnot, but I think it's an opportunity to step back a little bit and talk about the why of, you know, why this exercise was brought up in the first place. And walk through what phasing might look like, or, you know, other options in that. You know, I guess, you know, building committee wise, you know, otherwise on the other council members as well.
Yeah, I can talk. I think our biggest challenge we had, and from the building committee member is our communication, right? There has been conversation and requests to put it on the front page so people knew it was coming, right? Just didn't get there. There's been discussion of how do we make sure that we understand the why didn't happen. There's also been a little bit of miscommunication on, you know, it's not a $20 million project with, you know, day one, right? We have phased it out. Whether or not it's appropriate yet, I don't think we're there, but at least having that discussion. So being able to communicate that, I think, is our first priority that we have to have. I think, as we can see, everyone's interested in the project. So I would say, let's just start getting that feedback as fast as I can. I've gotten so many emails, and I like it. I enjoy that. It means people are interested in. And I think, you know, when we talk about committees, I think we have to seriously consider that. I think we need to look at that. So I think that's the first thing we need to do, is start discussing how do we communicate it appropriately. Starting with the need, with the why, right? And then be able to get people to where we are. Yes, everything is outlined. Yes, everything is transparent, but go review every single council meeting. It's not gonna happen, right? So how do we communicate that appropriately on the front page? So I think that's what we need to start to do. Is, doesn't need to be a ton, but let's get on the front page and say, rather than road weight and whatever else has been out there for permits for the last year, let's get that out there. Here's a big project that we're talking about, so people don't have to rely on other sources for that information. So the other point I think we need to do is we need to look at the locations. I have communicated with two that could potentially suit a little bit better. We just have to get back to our building committee to talk through, okay, what's that really look like? You know, one was maybe 6 months too early, but at least there's interest still and a very viable option. And another one in a location that I think would better suit this type of building. So here's my 2 thoughts.
Got something, Jay?
Yeah, I think that, you know, when we talk about hiring architects, engineers, construction manager, everything else, one of the things that was in that process was to have a website for it, or a place on our website. And I think we should do that. And we have a kind of central place where we can actually put the information where it's easily found. It should have some where people can, they might look for it, they don't search for it. We should put that out, and I think categorize it, and I think also we need to, I know we're gonna be talking about boards and committees, and I think a couple of us put that on the agenda for this day. So I would like to get a building committee to kind of look through this stuff too, and get in their eyes as well. So talk about that in the next item.
Okay. Bill, do you have anything on this one?
I'd like to take a step back and start over, now that we know how much we may want someday. First step is I want to find some land that's more appropriate than the land that's been talked about. I would like to relook at whether we can do things without building Taj Mahal. So can we rent space? Can we rent storage for, if we do have public works? Can we rent things as opposed to building something? Have we looked at the county helping us with plows and all that stuff for a public? Do we need public works facilities? Can we do have contracts with the county, like we have contracts with the sheriff department and with Prior Lake about, you know, maybe we have to buy their plow for our city, but they're the ones that manage it. We pay you know, we have a service contract with them. Maybe this was discussed before I was on the council, but I don't recall us ever talking about, the city talking about stuff like that as opposed to building and spending lots of capital dollars today. I hear from citizens that they want to look at that as opposed to just continuing down the process of building something. Because it's a lot of money and it'd be a pretty high tax bill, I think. From at least what we've been presented so far. So that would be my thoughts, and I agree with the committee. Before we do anything, let's get a committee with residents so they can have input before we do anything else. Don't sign anything about land, don't do anything else, just put it on hold. That's how I feel.
Okay. Anything, Leroy?
Yeah, I still said for months, we need to find some land if we're gonna go ahead with some type of a building. Start putting some of our trucks or whatever we're gonna start to get, slowly phase into it, but need to get some land to put this on, not look at a building and then try and find some place to put it, so. Well, it's
Okay. Just something else, Jay?
Yeah, I do. You know, a lot of the big driver of this has been snowplows and snowplowing. And, you know, have we actually gotten definitive no, there's just absolutely nobody else available? Or have we tried? Should we bid out and see if we can bid out and get other people? Have we actually had communication or presentation with one we have? And maybe talk to them about it. I've been hearing from others that there are other people that are available. I have actually been given a specific instance of anybody, but it makes me question whether or not we done everything we can to find out whether or not we can have somebody to do that process. And if we do have somebody to provide that service, we could get something that's a little bit more solid and going forward, contracted out where we have something that we can depend on, or the knowledge that we can depend on it. I don't know if there's anything wrong with what we have, but if we have that, that could make a big difference in what we're looking at needing at this point. Yeah, I think before we go any farther forward, we ought to at least come up with some sort of process to find out if we have other options.
Leroy?
Mr. Mayor, we have kind of specs for snow plowing. It required 120 horse to 140 horse road grader, which our previous contractors had. A few years ago, opportunity came up to buy a road grader. So we purchased one.
When the contractors failed.
Contractors failed, so found a really nice one that's been holding up really good for a whopping 69 grand. Instead of leasing or renting a brand new one that would really look good. And we also went out for other bids on snow plowing, and we came back with landscape companies with landscape trucks. That's why we spec that it had to be at least a 10-foot plow with a wing. We just, we can go out and look and try and find these people, but has been a waste of time. When we have a good contractor that's not gonna just up and quit on us, he's gonna continue to do this. And he has said he'd like to just phase out if we start to get some equipment, so. It's kind of where that's at.
That was if or when?
What?
Said if we start to get equipment.
Because so
Yeah.
you're asking whether he, you know, what is his intent long term? Is what you're asking.
Yes.
Yes. Invite him in here for a meeting and ask him.
I think I should.
So. Or. Drive over and. Talk to him.
The last time you talked to him, what was his comment on that?
He just said, I said, we're looking at. Possibly getting some land in the building and. He said, well, guys. Want to get a deal on a good truck, I got some for sale. So. But he's not gonna quit, he's gonna continue to plow. We have a contract, so. There you go.
Okay,
Mr. Mayor, have we looked at this land too? How big of how much acreage do we have where we're sitting right now?
here?
Yeah.
1.5 or 2 acres.
Yeah, less than 2 acres.
Can we expand this? Maybe maybe tear it down, but just expand it out to the parking lot, make it a little bigger so we have some offices. And forego building it for now, building something more expensive.
Once you start that process, I think then you end up in ADA compliance stuff that you'd have to meet and bring a whole bunch of other standards up to speed that probably can't do here.
We don't have a waste facility to handle.
We don't have a separate.
But we only have
the whole
3
container.
employees though. I mean,
So. It's already kind of an expensive problem.
How often we pump? Well, I know that one time, the Sunday when it was bubbling out of the ground,
so there's no opportunity to expand this building into parking lot. I mean, the parking lot stays empty practically every day.
I think a lot of what looks to make this a little larger is actually the county right of way for the road. You know, which actually would be mowing up to the pavement, but a lot of that's actually, it's not a lot, it's not buildable, there's a setback on it.
Well, I heard that we had to have a new facility though, because we don't have enough offices. So I'm not talking about a lot of space. I mean, we could just expand into the parking lot. That's not right away, right? Just go down. I don't know. It's a temporary solution. Is it long-term? No, but if all we're looking for is more space, what I'm hearing is that nobody wants to spend a lot of money.
well, that's what I think, Bill, I think the opportunity did, you know, and Abe talked about too, start back at the beginning of this project, have an open house where we can communicate the why, walk through the needs analysis, so everybody can see what the needs are, right? I mean, you don't even feel comfortable knowing, understanding what the needs are, it sounds like to me. When the things that you talked about, because you say, I've heard, right? Because I don't know that you've seen the whole needs and the why and all that.
Well, I saw
but
the analysis that said we needed office space and that we can't have meetings today. People walk in the door and we have to stop meetings. That was a need.
And we have elections that will disrupt 3 or 4 council meetings this year. Because of pre-voting and all that stuff as well. So there's, you know, a combination of things, but again, that's where I think if we can. Maybe ask the building committee to go back and prepare. Work with their, you know, team of, let's go back and how do we communicate the why? And walk through that analysis. It's not committing us to anything other than looking back at the exercise of. How do we get where we're talking about this today?
Okay.
And I think that would be an important step to take. In the
I
whole,
don't think we're that far along on that, as far as we had looked around and everything went into the kitchen sink as far as what might need to be there over the next periods of time. And we had a different number that came back.
those who define the time even.
Yeah, and we had a different number that came back, which was actually much larger than actually the 21 million that's floating around. And we just flat out said, you know, this isn't acceptable, nor is the 21 million. I don't believe that it's acceptable. We have to continue to look at and fine tune the needs that we have, you know, and then look at that list again and say all of those things. That's why I'm just asking about plows and maybe that's it. A lot of this is timing. Because eventually, as the north fills out, if it does, and it might need to, with the sewer requirements and densities. But we don't know what that timeline is. We don't know if that's 20, 50 years, 75, but at some point, there is going to be a need for a lot of the things that have come up in the research that we've done so far. And if all I care about doing is making sure that they're planned and there's a space for them, somebody else could build them in the future. We don't have to build them today. But we should really carefully look at that, and that's part of the planning. We should have the community knowing what it is they need. They can make some decisions too. But I think that's the important part. And as far as the dollar figure, I don't think we should even be, that anybody should be running around yelling about it yet, because it isn't real. It hasn't been defined as the actual cost. It was presented at the amounts of, if you're gonna put this in, this in, this in, this in, this is what it will cost, and if you're gonna do it over this time period. And here's some escalation and some inflation figures to put into that. We've done that just so that we can make better decisions. So, at this point, we're not that far along. And I think now's the time to bring everybody else in, because at least we have an idea of the different things that would go into the bucket. And then we can all decide whether or not each one of those bucket items needs to be in. And, and that's why, again, I'm questioning well, because that's the big part, that's the big driver of some of that. Then we have other, other things, we need that much staff, that we need, we can, those are decisions we can make. So that's my.
Sure. I have one. There are. Yes, committee. Have you guys looked at, do we need this? I mean, it's great if we can find 20 acres on the same property. Could we get 5, 8 acres to put a public works building up with a larger gathering hall for now? And maybe find some property down the road to put a grand city hall on? I would have them split from each other. Other cities wouldn't just,
I can talk to that one, because I was actually opposed to that because of the simple fact, if you can keep it all in one building, you got some mechanical, all those pieces that you wouldn't have to worry about. So the thought was, and to Bill's comment, in my opinion, I like this building. I think it's great. The public works is our problem. So if we're going to build a public works garage and we're gonna have some office space, could we build some office space that would last for many years for the public works and put city employees in there, right? And then leave this for this general purpose storage, whatever the case might be, right? So from your office space, in my opinion, that's not our big issue. But for your comment, we have looked at that, but as soon as you start building multiple buildings, my thought process was you're gonna have more expense versus having a building and then just add a wing on to the front. And do we need to make it spectacular? No. I mean, it can have the public.
I don't know that anybody's talked about a grand or Taj Mahal.
Yeah.
No,
But I
I think
think-
that the building we toured looked like a large horse barn.
I think the picture that we put on the presentation was a wrong choice.
Yeah,
Right?
agree.
That's certainly not what we're looking for.
No.
We're looking for a
Modest or less, right?
unified pole barn. It's really what we're. But if I'm wrong in that assumption with multiple locations too, I think. At this point.
But I
we
think
just-
part of it is trying to understand what the needs are, short-term and long-term. And then you can make that decision, right? Because then you get that opportunity to say.
And I think
Yeah,
that's
dude.
the part that we've done mostly up to this point.
Right.
It's just looking at what are the different things, because there's a lot of things that there is a consultant that's actually saying. A lot of people have this, or a lot of people would do this. Have you thought about that? I didn't, until we did the tour, I didn't really think about having street signs. Or storage for things like that, and some of the things, and then we at some point, when we have a water service that's within the border of Credit River, we are going to have a place to put water meters for the dorm and stored, and used, so we are going to have a SCADA system at some point to build and manage the water. And, you know, there's going to be some special pieces of equipment, whether you hire it out or not. Is to handle the billing, sewer, the water service, and, you know, we don't have any of those things yet. But we don't have that service, but it is, you know, those needs are, we all, you know, we know that they're coming. So we need to make sure that there's a plan in order to incorporate those into this. That can be a reactionary thing, so.
Okay. So. Again, I guess I'll go back. I mean, I would be a big proponent of, and Abe talked about it as well, going back to talking about that story. Let's, you know, how do we community open house or whatever we need to do to go back and show what this study looks like a little bit more in detail, the whys up front. You know, again, it's not, that wouldn't cost us a whole lot of money to do that, you know.
Yeah, I mean, there's not just the data. There's
Right,
not
data,
a study.
but I think what we would probably,
presented.
no, but we would, you know,
We
some
should do it more.
storyboards or some
Yeah.
storyboards or stuff like that.
Mhm.
And I think you know, you and Abe and Jay, you guys have worked a lot on this, and I think it'd be good to tell some of that story about what you've done so far and what
And
you've
that-
looked at.
And that was in the proposals, community engagement.
Yeah,
So
that's-
that is part of it.
That is part of it.
So I think it'd be
Hired.
great at
We
this
just need
point to be able to get that out there.
Okay. Anybody have any disagreement to that?
No, I think that's fine. Can we put a stop though to what all we're doing until we have these conversations with the public? So don't buy land right now. And don't spend any more money on architects and building all of that stuff until we figure this out.
I don't know if is there any action upcoming. I don't think there's any.
I mean, I
We haven't even had a
don't
building
want something on the
committee meeting
agenda
after.
saying we're gonna take a vote on the land over there. So we're not doing anything with the land
I'm not part of that.
I'm having conversations
with the.
to see if
with
there's
site
even
A and B?
interest. No,
Okay,
other.
I'm worried about the sites A and B.
I know.
What's going on with those?
They're
Uh,
flooded
nothing.
right now.
I know they're flooded. I
Nothing.
noticed that. Did you notice that? Right where a building would be?
Nothing's happened.
All right. Can we also talk to the county about possibly? Do they have any interest in serving us the
I made a
plowing?
phone call this week,
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Okay,
so, and it got resolved.
okay.
Suspicion's gonna be is people is gonna be the problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's always.
My point is though, that we don't have to have the infrastructure. We could pay for their people. We, just like with the sheriff contract, just with prior, like, you know,
Mhm.
a fire department. We pay for those services. It's a lot more efficient for a small little town like us. We don't need to build it ourselves if we can use someone else's. To me, it'd be a lot cheaper. And from a net present value analysis, it'd be better for our taxpayers. Will it cost more over the long term? Yes, but it won't, the net present value of that money it'll be cheaper from a cash perspective. So I just want to make sure that we're looking at those options as opposed to building.
I got one. If our present contractor would like to continue snow plowing, could we look at possibly buying a truck and having one of his guys drive it?
Yes, I'd be interested in that.
Something like, I mean, some of his equipment, and that, I hear it all the time in the winter from, and don't say you don't bitch about it, because you do. Old ratty truck coming down the road, so. So, you know, maybe we do something like that.
Yes.
Feed like that. Then we could put our liquid.
Liquid tanks on it.
Yeah.
That's because it, you know, I think that's that's probably half the battle for him, for a contractor.
Right.
Is the equipment, right? So.
Insurance
Because
update.
it's really specific to plowing roads. It doesn't work good for hauling gravel.
No.
It doesn't work for doing anything in the summertime.
Is there any legal issue that or risk that we would have?
There's
to do that?
agreements we put in place.
They plow our roads today, right?
Right,
Yeah.
but it's already equivalent.
Oh,
But again, there's all kinds of ways you can phase in any of this, right? I mean, But you still need a spot to keep it, and still need a spot to wash it.
Where does he put his trucks these days? Does he have a shed?
Yeah, it's huge buildings.
Can we rent his?
Well, if our truck is sitting there.
Right.
Our grader sits there now,
Yeah.
but it is outside of the city.
Who cares? I mean,
Well, because there's mileage of in between,
Oh, okay.
right? I mean,
That's a lot of.
3 miles.
To drive a grader a mile.
The grader is probably harder than the
Yeah.
trucks, right? And that
Yeah.
doesn't exactly move all that fast on the highways. All right, so can we ask then the building committee get together and talk about whens and the whats and how we're gonna put this all together?
Yeah. Absolutely.
And I think through that process, content for the website. I'd be happy to update that if somebody provides me content. I can provide that. So start there.
Yeah.
And I think that takes us through a lot of, teaching and learning and community engagement. I think we can use that as an opportunity for some feedback on what we showed that night as well, or what day, or whatever, and how that ever works out.
Yeah.
The next step piece, then just whatever we do after that. Okay. I think too, if you guys do meet and get together and start coming up with some things, maybe just some updates during our NOA, but stuff in the past during the council member update reports, so we can keep that up as well.
And for anyone here, if you're not signed up for the newsletter, go out to the website and click on sign up, because all that content will be pushed out for when an open house is. Or
Yes.
when any kind of hearings are, so if you're
Really
not
easy.
on that, please go out and sign up for
The
it.
first time you go to our website, it pops up. You have to click out of the box. So before you click out of the box, put your email address in. All right, anything else on that piece? All right, we'll move on to the next agenda item, 6.4 boards and committees, Administrator Reynolds.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. There's been the discussion about establishing the citizen committees. And also in regards to establishing some additional council committees. So this agenda item is placed on for consideration for the committees. For establishing these, recommendation, if there's decision to establish them, is to look at defining what the purpose of it's going to be, the members, the number of members, number and function of council liaisons, any term lengths, any term limits that you want to consider for committee members, staff liaison, and then frequency of meetings. All of that can be then put together into a resolution and brought back for the council. You look at doing kind of resolution bylaws, brought back for the council to formally establish a citizen committee. And just kind of keeping in the back of your mind, formally established citizen committees do have open meeting law requirements, and the public meetings are, the meetings are public, they are noticed, there's agendas and minutes prepared on all of those meetings. And in addition, you still have the open meeting requirements of a quorum of the members meeting. So that's just something that as these committees are established, that you would keep in the back of their mind, and we would do training and information for them so that they're aware of open meeting law requirements for them. Council committees, if it's less than a quorum, it's not public notice meetings, so. I'll move forward, but it's there for council's discussion on how you want to proceed.
Okay, thank you, Kathy. Council members, discussion, comments, questions.
I think there were a couple of us that put this on, and asked for it. I've, been a member of the committee in Credit River before, and I see in the audience a couple that were on that. I think, some of us have had some experience on Credit River, Citizens Advisory Board, which worked on comp plans, parks, a number of different things, some ordinances, years and years back. I think we should really just move forward. There's a lot of stuff to do. I hear that we don't have people to do it and, you know, to do certain things. We have a lot of needs for ordinances. People could look at those and then, you know, help us with that. There's a lot of people, I think, that want to volunteer, that want to be involved. So, you know, that's why I asked to have it put on, and I believe Dave also asked. And, you know, I'd like to hear his reasons, but I think we could have somebody to work on ordinances. We could have, whether it's all one group or it's multiple committees, we could have somebody to do a vision statement for us and help us. You know, they're putting it together, they bring it to the council to make a final decision. But, you know, then there's been community involvement all along. I don't think we need to be going out and contracting to do different things to do the same thing. I think this is a place where if Credit River wants to be unique and have those things and have kind of more grassroots base, then, you know, this is easily the way to do it. I think that we really should have, you know, we had talked, a big part of our building code was about getting community engagement in the beginning, you know, of it, and how we were going to incorporate it. I think at this point in time, we are ready for that community engagement. A citizens group committee would be excellent as far as to hash out things so they can, then you don't have stuff flying around the city that may not be true or whatever. So we can do that. Again, I'd say ordinances, vision statement, parks and trails, public works and government center. I think all of those things can use community input, as well as conducting surveys. I mean, there's a good survey if everybody's read it. We had the results were given to us, and I don't think we paid enough attention to them at the time that they were given to us. But we should really be looking at that, because that's the public input that we should be running the city on. That's how we go about setting them up. I'm not exactly sure how, but you know, in the past we had a board member that was actually basically a liaison. They just are there to facilitate things. They're not actually running the meeting or doing anything else that the citizens do. And, you know, we just have to make sure that it's what we're doing. If we're making it a sanctioned thing, is that it's done correctly. So, I think that discussion is needed as far as how to establish committees. And if we need more than one, or if we need just one big one.
Okay. Do you have any further comments?
Yeah, I do. So I reached out to Councilmember Lake over at Prairie Lake. He's on the Community Engagement Committee. I talked a little bit about what that looked like. I don't think that's what we want. So what they really had is some staff member created the agenda. Some staff member said exactly, here's what the discussion points are. And the residents came to this meeting and basically were told, you know, what the thoughts are, right? I think that's completely opposite of what we need to do. I think what we need to do is a little bit more along the lines of what Jay was saying is, I think a council member or staff does need to be present and can even start to create an agenda, but I think it's more of a conversational agenda versus this is what we're gonna do. So for example, with the building committee, which I think is one that we should look at right away, is okay, what are the concerns, right? What are the locations? Why are you concerned about us building a public works? Hearing what the feedback is, so we can bring that back to the larger council meeting to say, okay, here's what we're hearing. Let's then now go task them with what Leroy was saying, what me, Mr. Mayor, were saying, right? And we can use them to assist us and help us to be able to get the information and ideas that, quite frankly, maybe we didn't think of. So I'd like it to be very conversational. I think that takes the time constraint out of staff and out of council members' hands and gives it a little bit more into whoever wants to be on the committee. So I strongly suggest that. I think based on this being one of the largest projects that's the city of Credit River has ever had, we'd be remiss not to have some kind of committee like The other one that I would say, is a finance committee. And that would be internal committee for budgeting purposes. I think, Councilmember Marker mentioned it last time, and I think that's a phenomenal idea. We don't need, I mean, we're limited in staff, so why not use someone that's a CFO in practice, be able to give some advice. I'm happy to help in that as well. So I think those are two areas that I'd like to look at from the council or from a committee, from the public and from internal.
Yes, Jay. I also, in looking at this, I was kind of researching, we have in our bylaws two sections that actually, govern formation of committees. But I was also looking for a little bit more information because it was before my time establishing the planning commission, which is actually a citizen committee. It's actually a committee that, follows our bylaws, follows everything else. Do you have, where would we find the information on how that was formed, or how people were selected for it? Because this is like, I know I went through this process, I saw the process that we did when we added new members to the planning commission. But how was it done in the first place? Because we had a committee member and, and a council member, we had looking at reviewing and everything else, but before that, there was this egg before a chicken, and, how did that happen the first time? I couldn't find it.
So at first it was the town board was the planning commission, and it was adopted by ordinance. So planning commission is adopted by ordinance. The ordinance states that it can be appointed members of the community, or it can be any combination of council members at the time town board.
And that
So
was
by ordinance.
2018. Something there else, or was it earlier?
It was later. It was actually 1920-ish, somewhere around then. So it was right when we took over planning and zoning from Scott County.
Right. Okay.
Because that's when it required to have a planning commission. So after about a year of the town board at the time running it, we decided that was time then to appoint members of, once we had the cadence going, once we had all those pieces going, it was time to appoint residents to the planning commission. Okay, so we had an application process, and a small committee of the town board interviewed the applicants and recommended to the full board the appointments.
Okay.
Abe was one on the first one, Bill was
Yeah,
on the
actually,
first one.
I recall.
Mhm.
If we were to set that up, I mean, one of the things that I'm just kind of looking at the process of how to do it, and I would like to make sure that when we do a committee, that it's a broad reach of people throughout the community. That it's not just one neighborhood or one group or 3 or 4 people on it that are just specifically one interest only. I mean, there should be, I'm just looking to make sure that it's actually a wide reach, so that we get across the whole thing and how we would do that. And I don't necessarily think that we should be, if it is a committee that we're setting up to look at that we should really be governing who's in it as much as let it govern itself. As far as the membership of it, or who's on the committee.
So how would you appoint the first?
That's what I'm kind of looking at, is like there's looking for guidance to suggest. I mean,
part of
The meetings are open to the public, so you can appoint the people that would sit at the front of the table, but then anyone could come and contribute.
Yeah.
That's the only way I know how you'd be able to do that. You'd have to appoint.
So
ultimately you have to.
Yeah, I mean,
an application process.
we would have to have at least the leadership of it appointed.
Yeah.
And then, but, how would we, I'm just kind of looking for a feel of how we would set it out.
I think we'd do the same thing. We'd have applications for people that are interested in doing it. And I get your point where we don't want everyone in Crestview to be on it. So you'd have to make decisions on parts of the city.
But a lot of that depends on
Well, what it is.
Yeah, where you can only do so much. If you only get applications from this part of the city, what are you
We
gonna
just
do?
appoint people whether they want it or not.
Oh, okay, try to do that.
Because of where you live in the city,
Yeah,
you're getting automatically
right.
appointed.
But I think you'll get a hodgepodge of people.
Yeah.
Well, I agree everything with what Abe and what Jay has been saying. I don't want to make it onerous either. I don't want public notices. I wanted to have less than a quorum. So we don't have to do that. So have one or two liaisons to that sit in. It's kind of like the committees they have with the school board. Because they have to follow open meeting laws too. They don't have to post any of that. They do post it on the website so people know when the meetings are. But all the liaisons would just sit back and maybe they can talk, but they don't run the meetings.
Right. Well, that's what we do with planning commission now.
Yeah.
You know,
But is that-
I'm the liaison to the planning commission. I don't sit at the table with them and I don't
Right.
participate. It's more of to bring that information back to the council. Oh, by the way, this is the discussion that the planning commission had during their, deliberations on the recommendation type of thing.
I've been on the finance advisory committee for the school board for 3 years now, and the school board members that do attend, they do talk. They'll provide some information so that the citizens understand certain things. So that's what I envision us doing. But it's not a public notice meeting. There's no decisions made at the meeting. It's more getting citizen input that then the liaisons bring back to the full council.
Right.
And I hope we can do that very simply without any. Also, the bylaws are made by the citizens board. It's not, we don't have to draft any bylaws either. They don't, actually, for the first 2 years, we didn't have any bylaws. So I think we can make this relatively easy, I hope. And I agree with, maybe not ordinances so much, but the vision statement is more important to me right now. To make sure that we have what we want our city to look like. So when we're having these development guys come in and say, we want to build a big development, and if it's not with our, pardon?
Then we can point to that.
Yeah, yeah.
Say, this is it.
Right, so the vision statement, the government center, those are the two things that I would prioritize more than the ordinances. Because the ordinances we can have.
But, I think the problem is there's a lot of ordinances that we need that they're not getting.
Okay, well, then we should have a subcommittee of the city council get on that.
At some point, we're gonna run out of people that have an interest too, so I think you
Yeah.
pick your
Yeah.
committees that are most important.
Yeah.
They were.
Back when the committee or the group that Jay was talking about, it was when, territory was coming in. And everybody got excited about that. And rumors spread it was gonna be tar paper shacks and little bitty lots. And that's kind of when that group started to try and micromanage the town board. And then they got looking at different things and they did help and look at ordinances. And oh, we had a dog ordinance back from 42, I think you guys pulled out of the book.
Yeah.
So anyhow, and they did, it helped, so I'm all for committees.
Yeah, one thing, I really think we should steer away from like the planning commission. Right, because that's all staff driven, that's all.
Yeah.
I think it needs to be more collaborative, conversational, right? And you elect someone that's gonna chair it and vice chair it, and you have the two liaisons sit in these chairs and they can participate in it because there's no action that's going to come out of it other than here's what we would recommend, right?
Yeah.
So it's not like the council members are guiding and directing, but why are you saying that? Let me provide some of that feedback or some of that data or analysis you may not have. So I think by doing that, we can make it less onerous on staff, we can make it less onerous on council members, but then be able to let the city really direct some of that committee talk.
Mr. Mayor,
Jay.
can we also in this provide a place of meeting, which would be town hall or city hall?
Well, if it's a official committee.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess my recommendation then is there's a lot of ideas, but I think we need a proposal. Like, not just say, hey, let's do this committee. like proposal, and again, I do actually appreciate the bullet points, because there's some really good thoughts in the packet, right? So again, the purpose, the number of members, you know, whether you're gonna have one or two, you know, council liaisons participate, right? So I think these are good ideas of things that a proposal should contain. So that, because if we're gonna do something, it's gotta have direction, it's gotta have its boundaries, right? Because otherwise you're gonna have just a group of people that come here and chit chat for an hour and a half, 2 hours, and not gonna get anywhere, right? So again, if, you know, I would suggest we start. Again, I'm gonna hate to put this back in the building committee, but if that seems to be the one that you guys feel
Well, I
is
think-
like
yeah, I
the
think
place
we
to
can
start,
definitely meet. Yeah.
can you guys draft a proposal?
Sure.
So are we focusing it on one issue though?
But yeah, I mean, I still had a list.
Yeah.
of Others.
Well,
Right, no.
That's, yeah, I understand that, but I mean, what, you
So
know,
as a start,
still,
we
I
do
mean,
this, we do the building and then we kind of model the other ones after it. Is
you
that-
gotta start somewhere. You
Yeah.
can't, we're not gonna stand up 14 committees today.
Mhm.
Again, not, you know, whether we involve staff or not, but council member time as well.
Sure.
Right, because we're gonna have, if it's gonna be something that's done that way, then you have to be respectful of how much bandwidth we all have as well, right? So I guess I would, I mean, that's my thoughts is try putting a proposal together. Let's see what we get together before we go any further down the path and more scope, more this or that, and let's see where we land.
So like, maybe we meet with a couple community members and ourselves and go through the thing and come up with a proposal for it. Does that make sense, or just?
I think we draft one up and have a dialogue here and then present it in person. I think if we make this committee too broad, it does become just a chat session.
Right.
It's gonna be focused.
It's gotta be super focused, and these things, I mean, we could prop them up as needed and have them phase out as they, you know, run its course, right? The building committee isn't gonna be needed for ever, right? The vision one isn't gonna be needed forever. We can say, okay, we're gonna do a vision and it's gonna be, the term is gonna be 3 months. Right? And you can state it right there.
Right.
And then you can get those moving, I think.
So can I draft a vision committee? Or do you think that these committees are gonna be the same people on them?
Hopefully you have a broad reach of people.
We've been hearing vision for the last almost year now, and we haven't done anything. And I'd like to get going on that, and I'd be willing to be the liaison for that committee. And I'll draft exactly what you guys are drafting for the building. With the bullets that Chris.
Yeah.
If that's all right.
I'd like to see what they come up with, Bill, before we go any further to make sure that we can get alignment on, you know, how this is gonna operate. Before we, again, I'm just asking, just push pause for a second. Let's see what they come up with. Let's find a consistent process.
Okay.
And then if we have the process, it makes it easier to do something else.
Okay.
Yeah. That's my recommendation.
With open meeting laws, are we able to do that we could, before the next meeting, share between, let's say, committee and Councilman Margaret?
Mr. Mayor, council member, with the open meeting laws, you can prepare the proposal in concert with Councilmember Saderback. And you can distribute the proposal like you would a packet item, but you can't start talking about it. Kind of like we've done with other agenda items, you could route the proposal to staff or to myself to make sure it's distributed in a way that can't trigger a discussion starting. But you can definitely get it out so people can be thinking about it before the meeting.
I personally think that'd be great, then it's not just Jay and I thinking, that gives one more person to say from a different angle. Why not try to kill two birds with one stone? From a committee.
Can you guys do that by the next meeting?
Yeah, that's what.
Yes.
Yes. Okay,
Can we talk about the Finance and Budget Standing Committee then? Because that was a citizen advisory committee. This is something a little different where we don't really have the citizens involved. We have a committee with, between staff and council. So we try and work with staff to give what we think council wants or needs to do proper oversight for the budgeting process. And even for monthly reporting of financial state, you know, our financial positions. This doesn't have to be a long, maybe the budget committee is, you know, it meets in the summertime, but then it doesn't have to meet once the budget is pretty much done. And then once we put together like reports that we want to see on a monthly basis or probably quarterly basis, we don't have to continue with those committees either, but right now we don't have anything. And I want to make sure that when we go through the budget process that we're getting the information that we need to get. So I would volunteer my time, anytime to make that happen.
okay. Council members, comments, questions?
We know staff's time is limited. We know that there's a ton of projects on the board. And I think budget should be one of our biggest projects to make sure we're fiscally responsible for what we're taking in and asking for. So in my opinion, that's an absolute yes.
I agree. What is, what kind of proposal for a committee would you look like?
2 council members. And Dominique and Kathy.
Okay. How do you want to go about choosing council members?
Ask for volunteers.
I'll nominate Bill.
I'll volunteer. And I nominate Abe. Unless you want to do it, Chris.
If Abe doesn't have time, I'm fine with it.
If you have more time than me, you can have it.
That's.
I'm happy to assist, but I have to be real with.
I know,
my
that's
time.
why I said that, because I know your time was tight.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm gonna be on the building committee, if you've got more ability, then I would say that's fine.
Okay. Do you need an action on that? Motion.
Well, I'd be willing to draft something, Chris, of what's in my head and bring it to the next meeting or share it before the meeting. So give me this weekend to do it.
Yeah.
So we have 2 agenda items for next week.
Okay. Sounds good. Any more on that? Then we'll move into staff and council member reports, 7.1 April year-to-date financial report, Administrator Reynolds.
Thank you, Mayor. Wrap this around so I can get to sharing the screen. The report is in the council packet. Oops. Fine, a little harder to. Just kind of going through it, as I said, we've got this report that we've been pulling together. It's kind of a roll up of the major accounts under the general fund. You can see at that, most of them are tracking where they should be at this point in time as far as expenditures for the year. You see the clerk's position is low. That's due to it being an open position, and so a lot of that is salaries. So that's salaries and elections are in there. Or actually, no, elections are down, so salaries in that one. So that's a lot of why that one is low. Direct Finance Department one, they are at 38.39%, so audit comes in early in the year, that's a one-time expense as we look at it, so they are tracking out with where they should be as far as this year goes. Fire department, as we discussed last time, that is kind of the public safety, it's more than just fire, but it's the public safety contracts, and that's because we pay in 2 installments in the course of the year, so first half has been paid, so we're at 50%, so that's tracking where it should be. Public Works, low, and that's a large part of that is the salary for the Public Works position that council is now directed not to hire this year. As you look on down highways, streets, that's some maintenance and different things that are coming along. The paved streets and unpaved streets, you're at 0%. That's really where the summer maintenance work goes into those categories. And that work is just coming in, and those invoices on stuff that's being completed so far is just starting at this point. So tracking where it should be at this point in time. Ice and snow removal, you can see it's only at 15%. We had a good winter. It treated that budget fairly nicely this year, so that is still looking okay. Building permits, 15%. So tracking in there. Utility permit reviews and non-road engineering. So all those are kind of low, but those tend to flux, and over the summer months is some of the busier time periods for those, and those expenses go up. Storm drainage, that was money that's budgeted for some repair work. That's hasn't, some of it's needs still to be planned and needs somebody to work on the planning on as we look at it. Parks, you can see that's the $40,000. That's not been spent. That was money that was budgeted for potentially doing some playground work, using the master planning that. So that's money that's sitting there waiting for some kind of plan. Geo improvement bonds, those principal payment is made, principal and interest is made beginning of the year, and then you'll do an interest only payment towards the end. So those are tracking where those should be at. Capital improvements, you can see where we're at as far as expenditures. The main expenditure we've made to date within the capital budget that we put together was the purchase of the truck for Public Works. And then you're looking at the CSTS, and those expenses are tracking where they should be at about a third of the expenditures for the year. The lines that are low is a lot of that's accounted for the one-time step inspections that occur towards the fall. So those come in, those expenses come in at the end of the year. So everything is tracking where we would anticipate and kind of be looking at for the budget this year. Happy to answer any questions in regards to it.
What's in the, I'm sorry, Mr. Mason.
Go ahead.
What's in the general or the dev review team 41910 account number? What hits that bucket?
Development review team, so that has your planning contract, that has your our staff planner and all his wages and salaries, the planning contract, engineering review work of plans, building official goes into it. So a lot of contract time in there, and then your staff planner.
So that's mostly a pass-through account.
Yes.
So all the permit fees offset that?
Yeah, your permit fees, that's the intent, is that your permit fees should offset those, or the majority of those expenses. Not all planner time would be offset because he does spend some time on code enforcement. He does spend time doing just general reviews and answering questions of the community in regards to potential permits and so forth. And that is not, prior to issuance, and sometimes those never come in, but the majority of that is passed through fees.
Okay, thank you. Because okay. I thought we were doing well, like we were way ahead of what we expected for the permits for the year to date, but we're.
That's expenditures.
This is expenditure, right? I know it's not revenue, but expenditures, if it's pass-through expenditures, you'd think that we'd be above 33%, which is April year to date would be 1/3 of the year is over. And we're only at 23% of the budget. Maybe it's just lagging some expenditures. I don't know. There's a lag in the invoices.
Yes, I can explain. So like your building official, so you're looking at, one review team, so development work is a lot of pass through to escrows, and that's what your contract planner is doing today.
Okay,
But the big one that plays in on that is like your building official and your building inspector. They bill for those fees, for their fees, when the permit is closed.
okay,
So they may review a new house permit today, and they may spend the next year doing inspections on that new house, and we won't get the bill for that permit and for their fees for that permit until next year when a certificate of occupancy is issued.
and governments don't accrue for expense. They book it on a cash basis, so they. Okay. Thank you.
Is that something, Jay?
Yeah, the storm drainage, so I didn't, the answer kind of confused me a little bit. Do we have projects that are set as, that are there? Do we have some defined projects for that money that we budgeted for? And because the answer I got was, it just seemed like we weren't doing it.
So no, there's capital projects that's planned for that. So, and I don't remember off the top of my head where that 60,000. So I think I've got this up. So here's your storm water budget. So we have 91, but let me expand. Yeah, 91,000. So the storm drain, clean and repair, those are two pockets, and then you have 75,000. So I know it's 60,000 there. Some of this is within capital, some of it's within maintenance, and then it's other maintenance expenses. I would have to dig a little bit more. I can't remember what's all in the budget there on that 60,000, but you do have some things that were specific project plans. And then other ones that are just regular routine maintenance that we budget for. I think it's $25,000 or so roughly for just regular routine culvert cleaning maintenance. That's would be in this category, which none of that's been done at this point in time.
Yeah, I'm thinking that, we do have a lot of storm drainage throughout the city. And there's a lot of different things and I'm wondering if we shouldn't kind of establish a improvement plan like we've done with the streets and roads, which is worked so well. And identify, what we have, because I think we have this money that we're just not pressing.
When we do like these overlay projects, then they'll go in and inspect all the storm drains, see if they have to be cemented. They have to be repaired in any way. So that's when that gets added into into these costs generally.
How about the holding ponds and things like that and all the rest of it, cleaning the ditches?
That cleaning ditches is part of the $25,000 one when it's needed, kind of type deal. Holding ponds would be, I don't know, I think we threw some money at that last year, the year before.
Well, I think this year we, again, I think just showed 75 for the one behind your house.
Yeah.
I can't, so storm drainage, yes, we do have a lot of it that we should get into a regular routine. It's not necessarily a capital improvement plan as the capital expenditures that you have for street improvements, but some of it does lead to capital, but your regular maintenance, that's not a capital level maintenance. Does need some planning associated with it. That's part of the work that the public works supervisor would have been doing, is coming in and getting an inventory of all of these items. What do we have, what exists? So it's an inventory, a status and inspection, a condition of it, and then establishing the plans for the regular kind of routine maintenance of these items. As you look at it, you look at storm drain maintenance on those. Usually you're looking at a 1/3 to quarter of the city a year is what they're looking at doing for your regular routine maintenance. So, but that's part of the work that that public works supervisor would be doing, is getting an asset inventory, seeing what we have, what all we have, where does it exist? As far as the culverts, the storm drains, and condition report on all of those, and then building up some processes. And bringing that forward to council to look at what do we want to look at for our policy on how we're doing this routine maintenance, so that we can put together a budget that supports it. Right now, there's $25,000 that's in the budget that we use as needed for repairs as they come up where there's a problem. But there's not a planning behind that 25,000 right now.
Well, I'm not necessarily appraising who does it, I'm just saying. Start, you know, it can be assigned a lot of different ways, I think. We just need to figure out a way of getting a regular maintenance schedule of this on a calendar at some point, so that we're not having one things.
Okay,
I do my own still. I grab the logs that are clogging up stuff and move them.
all right.
I had one quick question. I understand this is expenditures only, and I understand that this is small, but elections. Have we received the state funds for primary elections?
The reimbursement request was submitted. It was about $10,000 roughly, the reimbursement request. The funds are supposed to be being sent out here in the next, like right around this time. So we should be seeing the funds hit our account, and that would be, like I said, $10,000 in reimbursement is what we put in for.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay, anything else regarding the
Nope,
update?
I appreciate these reports. I hope that as we develop or as we grow, we can have revenue reported to, as well as fund balances. And that'll be something that I'd like to work on with the standing committee.
All right, sounds good. Any other staff updates?
No other updates.
Any council member updates? You right?
Dust coating is completed. They called and finished up Hobby Hills on last Thursday.
Okay.
Or Friday, whichever day you called, they were going.
That was because they need to get the small truck up.
Yeah.
That one? Yeah.
Little truck, so should be complete.
Okay. Anything else? Sounds good. At this time, I'm gonna say to take pause. The council is gonna meet in a closed session following this pursuant to Minnesota State Statute, section 13D05, subdivision 3A, to conduct the annual performance evaluation of city administrator. So unfortunately, that means you guys need to leave.